She thought she was alone, but someone was watching her. Not from the outside, though, from above. At night, she heard the creaking, faint, careful, deliberate, but she brushed it off until she saw the nails poking through her bedroom ceiling. This isn't a ghost story. It's not a campfire tale. This is real. And it's more terrifying than anything you've heard before, because the monster wasn't in her closet. It was in her ceiling, and it was someone she used to love. When you think about places people could hide, attics are probably pretty low on your list. After all, they're creepy, dark, and usually full of cobwebs. But one woman learned the hard way that there's no place safer than your own bedroom until you know for sure that there isn't someone hiding in your ceiling. The problem started for Tracy when she was going about her daily routine in 2008. Back then, she was a single mom trying to hold it together after a nasty divorce. She had 5 children to take care of, 3 of whom were still at home. She worked in sales and was known as an honest, warm person who always went the extra mile. As far as her customers were concerned, she was a saint, but at home, she felt like anything but. Since her split with her husband, she'd had to work extra hours to keep her head above water, and all that time, she barely saw her kids. So when something strange started happening around the house, she put it down to fatigue. It began with simple things: a glass left on the table that she remembered putting away, or a sock missing from the laundry basket. She told herself it was her forgetfulness. After all, she was exhausted. But as the weeks passed, things took a turn. The candles in the hallway were blown out. Her refrigerator was bare despite being full just hours before. Doors were unlocked, that she insisted on keeping locked for safety reasons. Sure, these were small, unexplainable things, but Tracy was busy and stressed, so she didn't dwell on it too much. Then the whispers started. They seemed to come from the ceiling. At first, she couldn't make them out, but as time went on, the sounds became clearer, more human. When she heard the faint dragging of furniture, though, she sat up and listened. Every night, she heard what sounded like footsteps above her head, as if someone was walking carefully across the wooden floor of her attic. But when she got up to investigate, she found nothing, so she shrugged it off. But the whispers kept coming. One night, though, she heard a noise she couldn't ignore. It was late, and she was getting ready for bed. Then she heard it. A distinct tapping, like someone was hammering on the wooden panel directly above her. She paused in her task, listening intently. Then it happened again. Tap, tap. Someone or something was tapping on the ceiling. Instinctively, she raced into the hallway, moving toward the stairs that led to her attic. With each step, her heart pounded. Was it a raccoon? Surely it must be some animal. But as she reached the attic door, she stopped. She didn't want to see whatever was up there. But curiosity got the better of her. She took a deep breath and slowly pushed the door open. The attic was dark and smelled of dust and decay. Light filtering through the grimy window revealed nothing, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. Panic started to rise in her chest. What if it was something dangerous? She grabbed a broom, clutching it tightly, and started to search. She swept the long, cobweb-filled room, but saw nothing. When she finally climbed down the ladder, her hands were shaking. But the tapping hadn't been her imagination. When she returned to her bedroom, she noticed rows of small nails sticking out of the ceiling. How had she not noticed them before? There were dozens of nails, each no bigger than her thumbnail, but each one sharp and dangerous. They protruded at odd angles from the lath and plaster ceiling, creating a constellation of menace. And each nail was right above where she stood. Each nail was a reminder that she was being watched. Suddenly, she knew she wasn't alone in the house. Someone had been in her attic for a long time. Whoever it was had been living there, hiding from her, breathing the same air she did, walking above her head. A chill ran down her spine. Who was this intruder? And why were they watching her? She needed answers, but how could she get them? Tracy couldn't bring herself to stay in her bedroom that night. Instead, she went to her son's room and fell asleep in a sleeping bag between them. She woke up shaken and afraid. But the next morning, she knew she had to inspect the damage. She needed to know what was going on in her attic. Armed with a flashlight and a broom, she ascended the steep stairs to the attic. Dust motes danced in the dim light, making the darkness seem alive. She moved cautiously from room to room, examining everything closely. Underneath a pile of old furniture, she saw something disturbing. A blanket covered something large and dark in the corner. Curiosity and dread pulling her forward, she uncovered it and gasped. There was a hole in the ceiling, big enough for a person to crawl through, and on the other side, a gaping void stared back at her. The air in the attic was stale and heavy. The smell of decay hung in the air. The silence was deafening, broken only by the pounding of her own heart. Fear constricted her throat, making it difficult to breathe. As she peered into the darkness, her mind raced. Who was up there? Why were they hiding? What did they want? The hole seemed to mock her, offering no answers. She wanted to scream, to shatter the silence, but no sound came out. Her voice was trapped in her chest, a prisoner of her own terror. Finally, forcing herself to calm down, she decided to seek help. Calling the police, she explained her discovery, her voice shaking. But when they arrived, all they could find was a curious entryway to nowhere. The hole was gone. Confused and frightened, she was sent home with a promise of further investigation. But days turned into weeks, and the police found no trace of whoever had been hiding in her attic. Desperation drove Tracy to seek answers elsewhere. She contacted paranormal investigators, desperate for help. But even they couldn't find anything. The attic was empty, no sign of intrusion. It was as if the hole had never been there. The experience shook her, but life went on. She worked, she cared for her children. But the fear lingered. Then one day she noticed something. A patch of her ceiling had caved in, revealing the gaping hole once again. Hope surged through her. Maybe now the police would take it seriously. But as they stood in her attic, scratching their heads, she knew they wouldn't understand. And they didn't. When they failed to find any evidence of a break-in, the case was closed again. Tracy was left on her own, haunted by the mystery of the attic. But then something new happened. One evening, she heard a scratching sound coming from above her head. It was faint, but unmistakable. She stood still, listening intently. Then she heard it again. Someone, or something, was moving about in her attic. Panicked, she rushed to the attic to investigate. But when she got there, she found nothing. That's when she called her sons for help. Together, they explored the attic, determined to uncover the truth. What they found would change everything. Hidden in the rafters, tucked away in a dark corner, they found a mattress. It was thin and stained, clearly not meant for sleeping. But there was something else there, too. Half-eaten food, empty soda cans, a plastic bucket, a set of old coats and blankets fashioned into a kind of nest. Someone had been living in her ceiling for weeks, maybe longer, watching, listening, breathing above her head. And it wasn't just Tracy who was in danger. Her whole family had been living under the shadow of a stalker. But who was this intruder? Why had they been watching them? The questions swirled in Tracy's mind. But there was one thing she knew. She had to leave her home. She couldn't live under the constant threat of whoever was up there. She packed her things, she took her kids, and they fled. When the police were called, the attic had already emptied. Whoever had been living in the ceiling was gone, escaping through a secret door in the attic, disappearing into the woods. He was never caught. By the time police arrived, he had vanished. To this day, Tracy sleeps with her bedroom light on. Security cameras cover every angle of her house, but she still wakes up at 3:17 a.m., the same time she first heard the tapping, wondering if he ever really left, wondering if someone might be above her again, watching because the scariest part isn't what goes bump in the night. It's what lives above you and never makes a sound. Now check out. What the hell is behind this wall? Woman finds hidden room. or watch. This girl was abducted by her neighbor. For 13 years,